Carmel Cipollone.
Mr Speaker, I'm standing on behalf of Labor to express our support for the Home and Community Support Payment for Travel Between Clients Settlement Bill. And I think I'll start, Mr Speaker, by just taking us through a little bit of a timeline with respect to how we got to this point. So in May 2012, the Caring Counts report came out. In November 2012, Tamara Badley bravely took a test case claim on behalf of hundreds of fellow home care workers. She won that case, Mr Speaker, and then in September 2014, Cabinet approved this change. But it's taken quite some time for us to get to this point. And just reflecting on what the member Stuart Smith said earlier around the fact that we need to recognise the importance of the work that's done here, that we do have an ageing population and it's going to become increasingly important moving forward, I do have to then question why the government have dragged their feet to a large extent. They have reluctantly bowed, Mr Speaker, to pressure from the unions and adopted Labor's fair and sensible policy to pay home support workers for the time they spend travelling between clients. And that is only fair, Mr Speaker, because these people are paid so poorly that, you know, in the very least, they deserve to be paid for their entire time, which is also that travel time in between clients. Mr Speaker, before I got into Parliament in 2008, I had the privilege of managing a research project around the non-regulated Pacific health workforce, and many of the people that we worked with, that we interviewed, were actually providing home and community support. And as has been pointed out by a number of people here this afternoon, that workforce is highly feminised. It's also very ethnically diverse. In places like Auckland, we have a large number of women working in that sector who are from minority ethnic groups, who are Pacific. And Mr Speaker, the research also showed us that not only were those people working in those positions just to get a wage, but because, Mr Speaker, their primary reason for being in that workforce was because they genuinely cared about the people that they were being given an opportunity to work with. And yet, Mr Speaker, they did recognise that they were poorly paid. So highly feminised, ethnically diverse and very underpaid, Mr Speaker. So this doesn't go the full extent in terms of recognising the work that these people do. It's just a minor change that in some way will help them in terms of remuneration, but it only goes a very small part of the way. At some stage, the government, or whoever is in government, is going to have to better recognise the value of the work that these people, who are largely women, the value of the work that they undertake here. And, Mr Speaker, it is, I think, one of the major factors here is the amount that they get paid and the fact that they need to be recognised through remuneration. But there are other things too. The investment in workforce development for the people working in this sector. Mr Speaker, it's about the types of supports we put in place so that they're able to do their job as well as possible. So, Mr Speaker, we support this bill, but we are disappointed that the government have dragged their feet on this one. And moving forward, I think as a whole Parliament, we're going to have to think about how we can better recognise this workforce, how we can afford as a country to recognise them through remuneration. And, Mr Speaker, I look forward to the day when we can debate some legislation which allows us to actually have that fuller conversation rather than, even though it's really important, just recognising the travel time in between clients that these people will now be paid for, thank goodness.